Time has expired. Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. And what we're doing on this side of the House is seeking clarity, better information, understanding. The desperation is not from this side of the House, Madam Deputy President. The desperation is in those families who are struggling to feed their children, who are struggling to live on CDP, $11 a day, who are struggling to live on Newstart. That's where the desperation is, Madam Deputy President. So when a senator comes into the chamber and brings forward ideas, we naturally will ask and examine, well, where is the government going on this? How can Australians bank on what Senator Cormann says when members of his own government are touting more interference, in this case, in superannuation? Just in the Northern Territory alone, Madam Deputy President, we have a figure of more than $200 million in lost and unclaimed super owed to the people in the Northern Territory. Now, I realise that this may be a small amount in the nationwide figure of $17.5 billion in lost super, but it is a huge amount for a population of less than 250,000 people, and 30% of the population in the Northern Territory are First Nations people. So it is imperative that when an idea, a concept as important as superannuation is even questioned, then of course we need to challenge and ask the questions around it. We have an ever-growing number of government members speaking out and undermining assurances from senior cabinet members about superannuation increases. It should be straightforward. These increases should proceed as guaranteed in law. Yet we even have brand new senators talking about what they want to see happen with superannuation. Good luck to them, obviously, and welcome to the Senate, but also welcome to the scrutiny that is required of each and every senator. We all know that. Now, Senator Bragg made a very interesting first speech last night, and much of it I was very happy to hear, in particular around First Nations and the voice to Parliament. But he also threw in the idea that for some reason superannuation contributions should be voluntary for low-income earners. So people who are low-income earners can look forward to an old age of poverty. You know, these are the questions we have to now examine and ask. Or maybe they can live on the pension that Senator Ruston thinks is so generous. Senator Bragg's statement that First Nations people should be rightly and properly recognised in the Australian Constitution are really to be applauded. He's one of the first members of the government to support the inclusion of an Indigenous advisory body in the nation's founding document. But again, what is the government's actual position on that constitutional recognition of Australia's First Peoples? So when we're coming in here and talking about superannuation, there is a lot that the government can be turning to in its attention to making sure the super system is working for all Australians. I've given you the figure in terms of the people of the Northern Territory. Recently, a Victorian charity called First Nations Foundation was in the top end helping Territorians, particularly residents in our remote areas. As we know, again in the Northern Territory, over 100 Aboriginal languages are spoken. Those people were able to listen to the First Nations Foundation on how they can reclaim their lost super. This is a massive struggle for First Nations people and others with English as a second or third language living in remote areas to understand our super system. I mean, oh my goodness, you can have the best education and understanding the super system is still a complex process. So imagine for those people who have English as a second or third language. It's extraordinarily difficult. The Arnhem Land Progress Association Chief Executive Alastair King has rightly said the superannuation industry really needs to lift its game for people living in remote regions. In areas where internet access is poor or basically non-existent, it can be incredibly difficult to access this sort of information. Most people don't even know where to start looking for their lost super funds or even know they had superannuation funds they could roll over or access. The superannuation system has been pretty slow in adopting strategies that protect vulnerable customers. That's why this side of the House needs to keep you guys accountable.
Thank you, Senator.